On a clear October morning, as the sun started warming the cool air in DeKalb County, a shocking event happened in a quiet driveway. What was supposed to be a normal suburban day turned into a tragedy. Raisha Hurd, who was a mom and 2 months pregnant, went outside to bring in her groceries. She didn't get to enjoy the morning because she was shot multiple times right in front of her young son. The local community was shocked and didn't know how to react to such a brutal scene. A normal morning was ruined in seconds, leaving the community in disbelief, a family destroyed, and a nation shocked. Raisha was a woman loved by many, with a family and friends who cared deeply about her, and a son who had his whole life ahead of him. The violence not only took her life but also the life of her unborn child. The man responsible was Justin Rene Lewis, also known as Mad Music Cali. He used to say he loved Raisha, but he ended up showing a dark and harmful side that led to her death. Raisha and Justin's relationship was complex from the start. What seemed like a love story turned into a cycle of abuse, manipulation, and control. Their relationship, which had some good times, became a dangerous trap for Raisha. In the end, it cost her everything. That morning, nobody could have guessed how quickly things would turn violent. Raisha's future and that of her child were taken away suddenly, leaving nothing but sadness behind. This terrible event shows the hidden dangers of abuse and power struggles in relationships, which often stay hidden until it's too late. Raisha Hurd was born and raised in DeKalb County, Georgia, a place that would come to know her for her warmth, kindness, and vibrant spirit. From a young age, Raisha stood out, not just for her infectious smile, but for the genuine way she made everyone around her feel seen and valued. She was the type of person who brightened any room with her energy, someone who made friends easily, and whose presence brought comfort to those in need. Her childhood was filled with laughter, love, and the kind of stability that many dream of. Raisha was a beacon of joy in a community that was often overshadowed by challenges. Her early years were spent with her close-knit family who adored her. Together, they shared countless memories, family barbecues in the backyard, weekend trips to the park, and quiet evenings watching movies. Raisha's parents were the foundation upon which she built her life, and the lessons they instilled in her shaped the kind-hearted, thoughtful woman she would become. As a young girl, Raisha's life was full of promise, with her bright future lying ahead of her. She was the kind of person who never let anything hold her back. Whether it was school activities, sports, or hanging out with friends, she was always eager to experience life to the fullest. By the time Raisha reached adulthood, her aspirations had become clear. She dreamed of a better life for herself and her family, one where her son would have everything she could provide. Raisha became a devoted mother, pouring all of her love and energy into raising her young child. Her relationship with her son was one of the most important aspects of her life. She nurtured him with the same tenderness and affection she had received as a child, always striving to create a stable and loving home for him. But as happy as her life seemed on the outside, Raisha could never have imagined that the love she so eagerly gave would one day be overshadowed by heartbreak and tragedy. She could never have known that the man who claimed to love her would ultimately become the source of her pain and loss. The person who should have been her partner in life would end up taking it away. Raisha's death, far too soon and so violently, robbed not only her family and friends but also the world of a kind, caring, and loving woman who had so much more to give. Justin Rene Lewis, better known by his stage name Mad Music Cali, was born and raised in the heart of New Orleans, a city known for its rich musical heritage but also for its struggles. The streets of New Orleans, full of life and energy, could be unforgiving. Justin's childhood was marked by a turbulent family life, one defined by hardship, instability, and the raw realities of growing up in a neighborhood where survival often came before dreams. His early years were far from easy, and the environment he grew up in played a major role in shaping who he would become. Despite the challenges, Justin found solace in music. From a young age, he was drawn to the sounds of the city, the beats that echoed through the streets, the rhythm of the night, the voices of those who used music as an outlet for their struggles. It was in this environment that Justin developed a burning passion for music, a passion that would later fuel his rise as an artist. He quickly became known for his talent, his ability to turn his experiences into melodies, and his ambition to make it big. Music seemed like his ticket to a better life, a way to escape the chaos of his childhood and prove that he could rise above his circumstances. However, beneath Justin's promising exterior and raw talent, there were darker undercurrents. His troubled past and turbulent upbringing had left scars that would shape his future in ways that no one could have anticipated. While his musical career offered him a way out, it also masked a deeper issue, a pattern of violence that had begun to take root in him at a young age. The same anger and frustration that fueled his music would later spill over into his personal relationships, particularly with the women in his life. As Justin's music career took off, he became a figure in the local rap scene, known for his stage presence and fiery lyrics. But behind the scenes, a different side of him began to emerge. His rise to success did little to quell the violence within him. If anything, it seemed to amplify the very traits that would unravel his life. Justin's passion for music had become a double-edged sword. While it offered him a platform to express himself, it also fed into his growing sense of entitlement and control. A man capable of creating music that moved people also harbored a much darker side, one that would eventually destroy the people he claimed to love. Rayshaw and Justin's relationship began as a story straight out of a modern fairy tale, a whirlwind romance that seemed to promise the world. The couple's early days together were filled with joy, laughter, and endless affection. On the surface, they were the perfect match. Two people in love, sharing sweet moments captured on camera, each one more picturesque than the last. Their social media feeds became a reflection of their growing bond, filled with glowing posts about their connection, sweet messages, and photos that screamed couple goals. Rayshaw often shared moments of pure happiness, Justin holding her close, their smiles radiant as they posed for selfies at concerts or during romantic outings. But, as so many know, fairy tales are often just that, stories. What seemed like a dream relationship soon began to unravel, revealing a much darker reality beneath the surface. Behind the smiles and public displays of affection, a troubling pattern began to emerge. The initial charm and romance that had captivated Rayshaw soon gave way to jealousy, control, and manipulation. Justin's earlier signs of volatility became more pronounced as the relationship deepened, with emotional and psychological abuse beginning to rear its ugly head. Rayshaw, caught in the intensity of the love she thought they shared, struggled to make sense of the growing tension. It wasn't long before Justin's violent tendencies began to surface. What had started as small, seemingly insignificant outbursts of anger quickly escalated. Arguments, once petty and infrequent, became more frequent and intense. Justin's jealousy, which had initially seemed like a sign of affection, soon became a dangerous obsession. He would question Rayshaw's every move, accusing her of things that weren't there, controlling where she went and who she spoke to. His love, once so intoxicating, began to feel like a trap. Rayshaw, confused and heartbroken, found herself in a toxic cycle. She tried to convince herself that things would get better, that Justin would change. But the reality was far from what she had envisioned. The abusive behavior escalated, and Rayshaw found herself more and more isolated from her friends and family. She became entangled in a relationship that, despite all the signs, she couldn't seem to escape. What had once been filled with love and promise had now become a nightmare, a cautionary tale of how unchecked jealousy and violence can destroy a life. As the days passed, what had started as a relationship full of promise and passion gradually devolved into a tumultuous and painful ordeal. The love they once shared seemed to fade, replaced by constant accusations, threats, and manipulations. What had been sweet words and affectionate gestures turned into a toxic cycle of control, jealousy, and violence. It became clear that the warmth and intimacy that had once defined their connection had evaporated, leaving only a cold, suffocating environment in its wake. Raisha, trapped in the whirlwind of her emotions, began to feel the weight of the relationship crushing her. Each day seemed to bring a new confrontation, a new lie, a new threat from Justin. The man she had once loved so deeply was now the source of her pain and fear. Her once hopeful outlook on their future together began to wane as she struggled to make sense of his erratic behavior. Despite the growing tension and the mounting evidence of Justin's abusive nature, Raisha clung to a thread of hope. She convinced herself that things would improve, that Justin would change, that the love they once shared would return. But as time passed, it became increasingly clear to her friends and family that Justin's behavior was far from what it had seemed. Those closest to Raisha began to see the signs of abuse, and with each new revelation their concern for her deepened. Raisha's sister, Tracy Dalcour, would later reveal the full extent of the abuse. She spoke out about the violent incidents that had taken place behind closed doors. Justin had physically harmed Raisha on multiple occasions, leaving her with visible injuries including black eyes, and even sending her to the hospital for treatment. Despite all of this, Raisha still clung to the hope that Justin would change, that somehow their relationship would return to what it once was. But the cracks in their relationship were widening, and the pressure was building. The tension was palpable, and everyone around Raisha could see the toll it was taking on her. The woman they once knew, the confident, joyful mother, was now a shadow of her former self, drained and disheartened by the constant conflict. Still she hoped. She hoped that the man she had loved so deeply would see the error of his ways and that their family could be whole again. But the road ahead was only going to get darker, and soon, there would be no more hope left. On October 11, 2023, the unthinkable happened in the quiet suburban streets of DeKalb County, Georgia. It was supposed to be an ordinary day. Raisha, like so many others, was simply going about her routine. She had just finished unloading groceries from her car, an everyday task that mothers do without a second thought. But in a horrific twist of fate, that ordinary moment turned into a nightmare. Without warning, Raisha's life was violently taken from her. In front of her 9-year-old son and her family, Raisha was shot multiple times, struck in the back, chest, leg, and head, as she stood outside her parents' home. The sound of gunshots shattered the peaceful neighborhood, and in the blink of an eye, a family's world was forever altered. Raisha, who had dreamed of a future filled with hope and love, was now lying in a pool of her own blood. Her dreams of raising her children, of watching them grow, were extinguished in a moment of unfathomable violence. The life she had fought so hard to create, one built on love for her son, for her unborn child, and for herself, was ripped away, leaving only grief and despair in its wake. In the chaos that followed, the reality of what had just occurred began to sink in. Raisha's family, particularly her mother, was left to pick up the pieces of their broken hearts, trying to make sense of why this had happened. Her 9-year-old son, who had been witness to the entire tragic event, was left scarred, his young mind forever haunted by the sight of his mother's murder. The images of that moment would stay with him for the rest of his life. As the news of Raisha's death spread through the community, the public outrage was palpable. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers who had heard of her story felt a collective sense of grief and anger. How could something like this happen in broad daylight, in front of a family, and in such a brutal, senseless way? The loss was felt far beyond the confines of Raisha's immediate family. It reverberated throughout the entire community, sparking a conversation about domestic violence, abuse, and the dangers that can lie beneath the surface of seemingly normal relationships. In the aftermath, it didn't take long for authorities to begin piecing together the events that led to Raisha's death. Justin Renee Lewis, known to the public as Mad Music Cali, had been linked to a previous shooting incident involving Raisha's car just months earlier. In that earlier incident, Justin had allegedly opened fire on her vehicle, but by sheer luck, Raisha had narrowly escaped injury. The authorities' suspicions had been raised at the time, but the true depth of Justin's violence had yet to be fully understood. Now, with Raisha dead and the circumstances surrounding her death pointing directly to Justin, he quickly became the prime suspect in the case. In the wake of Raisha's tragic death, law enforcement wasted no time in launching an investigation. The community, still reeling from the shock, now turned its focus to the question everyone was asking: who could have committed such a heinous act and why? As the evidence began to mount, it quickly became clear that Raisha's murder was no random act of violence. The details that emerged painted a chilling picture of a pattern of abuse, jealousy, and a history of violence tied to the man who had once claimed to love her. Justin Renee Lewis, known to his fans as Mad Music Cali, had been on law enforcement's radar before. His past, filled with troubling signs of aggression and control, had always been a shadow over his music career. The investigation quickly linked him to Raisha's death, with witnesses and forensic evidence pointing directly to him. What followed was a tense and calculated manhunt. Justin, who had once been a rising star in the local rap scene, was now the prime suspect in a case that had gripped the entire community. Just days after the murder, law enforcement acted with swift precision. The search for Justin came to a dramatic conclusion when he was taken into custody. The police, fully aware of his history of violence and the danger he posed, executed a nighttime raid at one of his known residences. The moment was tense, and the air was thick with anticipation. As the flashing lights of the police vehicles illuminated the street, officers swarmed the property, arresting Justin without incident. The image of the rapper, once seen as a promising figure in the music world, now handcuffed and surrounded by armed officers, was one that sent a clear message. Justice, however delayed, was coming. The arrest brought a semblance of relief to those left behind, but it offered little comfort. Raisha's family and friends, while relieved that the person responsible for her death was finally in custody, knew that this moment of justice was not enough to heal the wounds left by her murder. Her absence could never be filled, and the pain of losing her would never fully dissipate. However, the arrest marked a pivotal moment in the painful journey toward justice, and for a brief moment, it gave Raisha's loved ones something they desperately needed: a sense that the system had acted swiftly and had at least begun to right a wrong. As the investigation deepened, shocking revelations continued to emerge. It was revealed that Justin's violent history went back even further than anyone had imagined. His previous wife, Sydney Dalcour, had tragically died under mysterious circumstances in 2017. The case had remained unsolved, and at the time Justin had not been charged. But as the investigation into Raisha's death unfolded, the connection between the two cases became undeniable. Justin's history of abuse, his pattern of violent behavior, and his previous relationship with Sydney, marked by accusations of physical harm and control, painted a disturbing picture of a man capable of extreme violence. These revelations only fueled the urgency of the investigation, as law enforcement worked tirelessly to piece together the full extent of Justin's crimes. Raisha's untimely death has become a heartbreaking symbol of the deadly consequences of domestic violence. Her story is one that echoes the struggles of countless others, a grim reminder of the dangers that so many women face in silence. What happened to Raisha is tragically common. Violence in relationships, where one person exerts control, manipulates, and ultimately harms another. But what sets Raisha's story apart is not just the brutal way her life was taken, but the lives she left behind, the child she had nurtured, the family who adored her, and the community that has been forever changed by her loss. Raisha's death has sparked an awakening for her family and the larger community. It has become a catalyst for action, fueling the efforts of those who are fighting tirelessly to prevent future tragedies. Loved ones, community leaders, and domestic violence advocates have turned their grief into determination, channeling their pain into a mission of change. They know that Raisha's story cannot be the last one told, that no more lives should be lost to the epidemic of violence that continues to tear families apart. Through the pain of their loss, they have found a renewed sense of purpose. As the case continues to unfold and the legal proceedings offer a sense of justice, it is the legacy of Raisha's life that continues to inspire. Her family has vowed to make sure her death is not in vain. They stand with countless others, advocating for changes in policy, better support for victims, and most importantly, an end to the silence that allows domestic violence to continue unchecked. Raisha's memory fuels this movement, driving the fight to protect the innocent and prevent future losses. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notifications so you never miss an update. Also, share this video to help raise awareness and spread the message of hope and justice. See you in my next video.